All right, hello and welcome to this video. As you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about you wasting your potential and not even knowing it and how to break free. So as you can see from the overview, what we're going to be covering is first the overview itself. You know you're meant for more, how to stop coasting and start living fully, escaping the system that trains you to settle, why easy living is slowly killing you, why motivation fails and purpose wins, the fatal mistake of going it alone, and the real blueprint for using 100% of your potential. Then the review and your action items for the day or the next few days. So you're meant for more. Let's get honest, maybe for the first time in a long time. Right now, as you're reading this, there's a good chance you're coasting, not crashing, not failing, just floating, getting by, moving through the motions, checking the boxes, doing what you're supposed to do. And yet underneath it all, you feel it. That low-grade dissatisfaction that whispers, this can't be it. You feel the hum of restlessness every time you open your phone and scroll through someone else's highlight reel. And every time you see someone living with boldness while you hesitate, it doesn't spark jealousy, it sparks recognition. Because deep down, you know that fire belongs to you, too. You've just let it dim. And you've probably told yourself it's fine, that you'll take your shot later, that it's not your time yet, and that you're not ready, not clear, and not sure. But you know that that's not true. You've outgrown your excuses. They don't even convince you anymore. Underneath the noise, the distractions, the daily grind, there's a truth that won't let you rest. A knowing that you were built for more. A vision you've silenced but haven't forgotten. And you can pretend you don't hear it, but it won't go away. Even if one part of this hits, even if a small part of you is nodding quietly, then it was meant for you. Not someday, not when you're ready, but now. So let's talk about how to stop coasting and start living fully. So before you can change anything in your life, you have to be willing to face the truth about where you are right now. Not where you say you are, not where you wish you were, but where you actually are. Coasting isn't obvious from the outside. You can look successful, you can be productive, you can even be admired. And still, you can be coasting. You can be moving without direction, busy without purpose, active but numb. Coasting is a slow, subtle form of decay. It drains you without crisis. It kills dreams without a sound. And if you don't call it out and interrupt it, you'll wake up one day wondering how the hell you got so far from the life you were supposed to live. This is the section where that starts to change. This is where you shift from autopilot to intentional action, from drifting to driving, and from wasting your days to waking the hell up. So let's get to work. The first step to escaping the drift is actually seeing that you are in it. Most people never stop long enough to even realize they've been coasting for years. You have to confront your current patterns with brutal honesty. How do you spend your mornings? What do your evenings look like? What do you avoid that you know you should be facing? Until you look your habits in the eye, you'll keep pretending that everything is fine. Your routines are perfectly designed to give you the exact life you have right now. If you want a different life, you need different patterns. Start by tracking your day every hour, no judgment, just data. This shows you where your energy is really going. When you see it on paper, it stops being vague. It becomes real, and real things can be changed. You have to admit what's not working, and that's hard because it usually means letting go of some very comfortable lies, like I'm just taking a break, or it's not the right time, or I just need to get through this week. Comforting, familiar, and completely false. The truth is, there's no perfect time. There's just now. Nobody is coming to save you, and the life you want isn't a lottery ticket, it's responsibility. When you accept that it's all on you, you stop waiting and start building. And strangely enough, taking responsibility is what sets you free, because it means you can actually do something about it. To break the cycle, you have to disrupt your momentum, interrupt your patterns, shock the system, and the longer you drift, the deeper the rut. So you don't ease your way out of coasting, you actually snap out of it. You disrupt your day in ways that force presence and demand intention. So start with something small but deliberate. Change your wake-up time, kill the snooze button, delete the app that distracts you most. Small shifts lead to surges in confidence because they prove you're still in control. And momentum builds faster than motivation. One decision leads to the next. So coasting is a product of low standards. The antidote isn't more goals, it's actually more intensity. Not in terms of stress, but in terms of engagement. When you stop going through the motions and actually start showing up like it matters, everything changes. Put your full attention on what's in front of you. One task, 1 hour, one workout, one conversation, when you go all in, even for a short time, the quality of your effort multiplies. And there's a kind of satisfaction that only comes from knowing you gave something your all. You need to set up daily cues that snap you out of drift. This isn't about willpower, it's more about systems. You can't trust your emotions to carry you. So you build a framework that does. Create rituals that force you to recalibrate: morning journaling, evening reflection, midday walks without your phone. Any of that would work. Without anchors, the day pulls you in 100 directions. With them, you stay grounded in what matters. These moments aren't luxuries, they're necessities. They remind you of who you're becoming. One thing for me, for example, is morning, lunchtime, and evening time. I have basically a recalibration routine in which I have to look through how many hours I've worked, how many hours I've spent on focusing, how many hours I've spent on the different things that I do. That way I can remind myself, first off, in the morning, secondly, in the afternoon or lunchtime, and thirdly, at dinner time or evening time, exactly where my time has gone in the day. And I can actually recalibrate as the day goes on. So for example, if I notice at lunchtime that I've spent very little time working, for example, and very little time in a focused, deep work, then it's still lunchtime. I can still change the day moving forward from there. But actually having those rituals, or actually having those moments where you reflect on your day as the day is going and recalibrating are very, very powerful. If you don't have those, then the day will just take you, and you will just drift. Just like if you just laid down in the ocean or whatever, you will just float to wherever the ocean takes you. So coasting happens when the future becomes fuzzy, when you're not pulled forward by something bigger. You don't need a perfect plan, but you do need a powerful picture, something that excites you, that scares you, that pulls you out of bed when you'd rather stay numb. So make sure you define your North Star, define your direction, not just what you want, but why you want it. Logic won't move you when things get hard, but emotion will. So the clearer the vision, the more energy you'll have to pursue it. If you keep seeing yourself as someone who just gets by, that's exactly what you'll keep doing. So identity is as powerful here. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards, and your standards come from your identity. So raise the bar, decide who the hell you are, and then act like it. And look at my other videos regarding this. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself. Every label is a seed, and every sentence is a script. Every word is part of that script. So stop calling yourself lazy, behind, undisciplined, and start speaking in alignment with the person you actually want to become. Stop doing things that pull you back to the identity you had before. Behavior follows identity. Identity follows repetition. So you can't break free in a space designed to keep you stuck. So your environment either empowers or entraps you. This includes your digital space, your physical space, and your social space. So clean your space, both the digital one and your physical one. Clear the clutter, remove friction, make it easier to win than it is to coast. A focused space breeds focused energy. Your environment sends messages to your brain. Set it up to say, this is where we do great things. Now, you won't always feel motivated and you won't always feel clear. That's when you need people who remind you who you said you were. Coasting thrives in isolation. Progress thrives in connection. So share your goals with someone who won't let you hide. Don't share your goals so that you can get the same dopamine hit you get when you complete them. Actually share your goals with someone who will really not let you slide. Find someone who can call you out with love and lift you up with truth. For me, for example, that could be my brother. Positive pressure is a superpower, so use it. At the end of the day, you don't coast because of your circumstances, you coast because of your choices. You want to stop drifting, make a decision to stop. A real one, not a hope, not a wish, a line in the sand moment where you actually draw the boundary between who you've been and who you're becoming. And write it down, say it out loud, declare it, and plant the flag. Decision is power, not because it guarantees success, but because it eliminates confusion. And once you decide, the noise quiets, the fog lifts, and you know what to do next. Every time you interrupt drift, every time you choose intensity, every time you act from your future instead of reacting from your past, you train your brain to stop coasting. You teach yourself that you are not a passenger and you're the damn driver. Which brings us to the next truth you've got to face head on. let's talk about escaping the system that trained you to settle. So you weren't trained to be powerful. You were most likely trained to be predictable from the very beginning. Your life was mapped out by a system that rewards compliance, not creativity. It doesn't reward bold moves. It punishes them. The truth is, most people are not underperforming because they lack talent or ambition. They're stuck because they've been conditioned to obey a set of invisible rules that were never designed to create extraordinary lives. The system isn't broken. It works exactly as intended. It produces average. It keeps things stable, safe, and manageable. It feeds you the illusion of freedom while keeping your choices safely within the margins. You were taught how to follow rules, how to memorize facts, and how to stay in line. But you were never taught how to think for yourself. Never taught how to build, how to lead, how to create a vision and pursue it with fire. So you learned that standing out was dangerous, that being too loud, too ambitious, too different made people uncomfortable. And it does. You began to associate boldness with rejection. You feared judgment more than failure. So you shrank and you became part of the crab bucket. You traded your edge for acceptance, and most people never get it back. You picked up cues from everywhere, from school, from culture, from family, from media, signals that told you to blend in, play safe, choose stability over freedom, choose approval over risk, and choose certainty over potential. You were praised for being polite, not passionate, for being responsible, not rebellious, for being normal, not noteworthy. Every time you obeyed, you were rewarded, and every time you questioned, you were corrected. Slowly, without realizing it, you stopped listening to your own instincts. You started outsourcing your life to expectations from others. What you repeat becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes who you are. If you were told again and again that success looks a certain way, you start chasing that version, even if it's not yours, even if it never fit. You inherited stories that were never yours, that success means a certain job title, a certain income, a certain lifestyle. The more you chase someone else's version of success, the more disconnected you become from your own. Living out someone else's story is exhausting. It drains your energy without ever giving you fulfillment. So the system teaches you to wait for permission, to wait for approval, wait until you're qualified, validated, certified, prepared, wait until people tell you that it's okay for you to do something. But waiting becomes a way of life, a habit, a mindset, and it kills momentum. You start believing that someone else knows better, that someone else should tell you when it's your turn and what to do. You keep your ideas in your head, waiting for a green light that never comes. You forget that the only permission slip that matters is the one you give yourself. The system loves labels. Once you've been labeled, you're easier to categorize. It's easier to predict and easier to manage. You are called gifted or average or troublemaker or teacher's pet, and those labels stick longer than most people realize. You start living into the label. You shape your behavior to match what's expected of you. Even the positive labels become cages. Smart makes you afraid to fail. Responsible makes you afraid to take risks. You have to unlearn those labels if you want to reclaim who you really are underneath them. So it's not just individual, it's cultural. Entire systems are built around keeping people in their lanes. Most of what we call normal is just deeply entrenched mediocrity dressed up as safety and common sense. You're surrounded by people who settle and don't even know they've settled. And then they tell you what to do. Because they haven't asked for more, they'll subconsciously discourage you from asking for more. Settling spreads like a virus, and the only cure is consciousness. The moment you start breaking out, you'll feel resistance, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something different. The system doesn't like different. It will push back. People will doubt you, circumstances will test you, and your old programming will beg you to go back to safety. Growth feels like chaos at first because you're rewiring patterns that have been in place for years. You'll miss the comfort of the familiar. It will feel wrong before it feels right. And that's part of the process. You don't escape by waiting for the system to change. You escape by becoming too powerful to actually be contained by it. You build your own framework, your own rules, your own code. You stop asking what's allowed and start deciding what's actually necessary. Your true freedom begins with rebellion, not against people, but against the invisible beliefs that have been running your life. You reclaim your role as the authority of your own path. Nobody else gets to dictate your ceiling. You stop being a product of the system and start becoming a force in your own right. You become your own system. If you want to live a life worth remembering, you need to rewrite the script. That means letting go of what you were taught and choosing what you truly believe. You don't break free by tweaking the old system. You break free by building something better. You're not here to blend in. You're not here to follow scripts. You're here to write a new one. So create a life that is built around your values, not someone else's rules. Your real work is to become so fully yourself that you give other people permission to do the same. Breaking out of conditioning isn't a single act. It's a daily decision, a practice, and a muscle that you have to build through action. And the next battle you'll face on that path is one that most people never even notice until it's too late. Let's talk about why easy living is slowly killing you. So, comfort isn't just a state, it's really a drug. And it doesn't hit all at once. It's subtle, it's slow, and it sneaks in under the banner of you've earned it and you deserve to rest. And yes, rest matters, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a lifestyle of defaulting to what's easy, what's numbing, and what's safe. The kind of comfort that becomes your cage, the kind that dulls your ambition and deadens your fire. You don't wake up one day stuck, you drift into it. One small surrender at a time, one skipped workout, one procrastinated goal, one maybe tomorrow that becomes a habit. This section is about exposing that trap and smashing it open because it's costing you more than you think. Comfort disguises itself as peace, but it's not peace, it's stagnation. It's a soft, quiet kind of death. The kind where nothing explodes, but everything erodes. You think you're relaxing when really you're retreating from your own potential. You dress it up as self-care, you call it balance, but deep down you know when you're hiding. Most comfort habits are just cleverly disguised forms of procrastination. The more you normalize avoidance, the harder it gets to recognize how far you've drifted from your own edge. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you send yourself a signal, a message that says, we don't do hard things. And over time, this becomes your default, and it rewires your brain to retreat from anything that actually requires effort. The brain loves patterns, and it doesn't care whether they serve you or sabotage you. It just repeats them. The more you avoid discomfort, the more you fear it. The more you fear it, the more you avoid it, and your capacity to handle difficulty literally contracts. You become smaller in spirit and weaker in grit. And the worst part is that comfort feels good in the moment, and that's why it always wins. Your brain is hardwired to chase pleasure and avoid pain, but long-term fulfillment is never found in what's pleasurable. It's always found in what's meaningful, and a lot of the times, what's meaningful is actually what's hard. So you're trading long-term pride for short-term relief, and the return is never worth it. The more you indulge in comfort, the emptier you feel, because it doesn't feed you, it drains you. Over time, you begin to resent yourself, not because you're lazy, but because you know you're capable of more. And the comfort zone promises safety, but it delivers stagnation. You're not actually protected by anything. You're just numb. And that numbness costs you your creativity, your hunger, your sense of aliveness, and you become a spectator in your own life, watching, scrolling, reacting, never creating, never actually building. And one day starts to feel like the next. You lose the thread, the fire fades, your life becomes one long neutral blur. So you stop caring, not because you don't want to, but because nothing feels worth the effort anymore. Think back to the last time you felt truly alive. It wasn't during a Netflix binge, or a binge of any sort. It wasn't lying in bed scrolling your feed. It was probably when you were fully engaged, challenged, pushed to your edge, maybe even scared. Aliveness lives on the other side of difficulty. You don't get it by playing safe. You get it by leaning into it. Real satisfaction comes from overcoming something that tested you, and the things you're proudest of didn't come easy. They came because you chose discomfort over something easy, because you chose discomfort over retreat. The more you feed comfort, the more you fear challenge. And the more you avoid challenge, the less confident you feel. And the less confident you feel, the more you hide. It's a vicious cycle, and it compounds every day. And just like growth builds on itself, so does stagnation. The longer you stay stuck, the harder it feels to get moving again. The longer you coast, the heavier everything feels. Even small tasks start to feel impossible. And the only way out is to interrupt the cycle with force. You don't drift out of comfort, you break out. You don't grow without tension. Just like muscles tear and rebuild, your identity stretches through resistance. You don't find out who you are in comfort, you find it in challenge, in strain, in stretch. Every time you face discomfort, you expand your threshold. You build mental strength, emotional grit, and inner fire. Just like in the gym, growth comes from reps. You train yourself to handle more by choosing the hard thing more often. That's all it is. Just look at what is the hard thing to do in any specific moment, in any specific day, and just do the hard thing over the easier thing. What once felt terrifying starts to feel normal. You raise your baseline and you become someone who actually does hard things on purpose. And then you start living a life of fulfillment. The real secret isn't talent, it's tolerance. The ability to stay in discomfort long enough to actually finish, to follow through, to ship, to lead, to win. Discipline isn't suffering, it's self-respect in action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you earn trust. And self-trust is the foundation of self-worth. And when you know you'll show up no matter what, you stop being afraid of difficulty. And ironically, peace comes not from ease, but from knowing you can handle anything. So this isn't about glorifying pain. It's about respecting the edge, the place where things feel hard but not impossible, uncomfortable but not dangerous. The edge is where you grow. And most people never even touch it. So you have to choose the edge on purpose, to seek it, to schedule it, to welcome it. Make it a daily ritual, a cold shower, a tough conversation, a stretch goal, something that makes you flinch. When you master discomfort, you become unstoppable because nothing owns you anymore. If you want to change your life, you have to change your relationship with comfort. Not by avoiding it completely, but by refusing to worship it. You don't owe your comfort zone anything. You owe your future everything. And that future won't be found in easy. It will be found in clarity, which is what we'll talk about next. Let's talk about why motivation fails and purpose wins. So motivation is one of the most dangerous myths in the personal development world. Everyone's chasing it. Everyone's waiting for it. Everyone's complaining when it's not there. But motivation isn't reliable. It's fleeting. It comes and goes with your mood, your energy, the weather, the time of day. If you depend on motivation to act, you'll only take action when conditions are perfect, and they rarely are. In fact, 99.99% of the time, they aren't. If you want consistency, if you want results, if you want momentum that actually sticks, you need something stronger. You need clarity, you need purpose. Because when your life is anchored in something real, something meaningful, something bigger than convenience, you stop needing motivation to move. You just move. Motivation is emotional, it's reactive, it's based on how you feel, but you can't build a powerful life on something as unstable as feelings. If your actions are dictated by your mood, your outcomes will always be unpredictable. Some days you'll feel inspired and other days you won't. If that's your standard, your results will match your lowest moods. You might get a short burst of action here and there, but nothing sustained. It never compounds, it never builds, and you spend more time waiting to feel ready than actually making any progress. And most people think they're lazy, but they're not. They're just unclear. They're not wired to sit still. They're wired to move, but they don't know where they're going. And without direction, even the most talented people will stall. Without a target, your energy has nowhere to go. It disperses, it gets eaten up by distractions, and you end up busy instead of effective. Constant motion, no real momentum. You feel tired not from overwork, but from the stress of aimless effort. Clarity fuels emotion, and emotion fuels action. And you don't need hype, you need alignment. When you know what you want and why it matters, your actions start to self-generate. You stop waiting for the spark because you become the fire. And purpose gives you something solid to hold on to when everything else feels chaotic. Even on the hard days, especially on the hard days, your purpose keeps you moving. And you bounce back faster, not because it's easy, but because you have a reason that's bigger than the setback. And purpose isn't abstract. It's actually very specific. It's visceral. It's not a slogan. It's a picture, a vivid mental movie of the life you're building and the kind of person you're becoming. If you can't see it, you won't chase it. So the clearer your vision, the faster you'll move. You need to know what it looks like, feels like, and how it even sounds. Paint the picture in a way that makes you feel it, not just understand it. The right vision creates energy on demand. You tap into it anytime you lose your footing. In fact, if you create the right vision, anytime you feel down or you feel a bit unmotivated, quote unquote, you can just visualize that vision. And all of a sudden, you have that quote unquote motivation. So purpose is more than a goal. It's an identity upgrade. It's you stepping into the version of yourself who does hard things, who follows through, who stops backing down. When you shift who you believe you are, your habits shift with you. And purpose makes the path personal. You don't just want results. You actually want to become someone different. You start raising your standards, not out of pressure, but because your new identity won't accept anything else or anything less. There's nothing more satisfying than acting in alignment with who you know you're capable of being. Purpose puts you in the driver's seat. You stop outsourcing your energy to outside circumstances and you stop blaming the day, the job, the weather, the news, because none of that determines your direction anymore. You do. So you stop waiting for inspiration and start creating it through action. And you no longer need someone to tell you what to do. You already know. You show up even when it's inconvenient because you understand that consistency is love in action. If your purpose isn't clear, your action will always be hesitant. Vague goals create vague results. You need to define what you want so specifically that it's impossible to misunderstand. What does better mean? What does success look like? Get exact. Vague goals sound nice, but they don't actually move you. Concrete targets do. You need to know when you've won, what's the milestone, what's the benchmark. And clarity leads to action because there's no more doubt about what needs to be done. Motivation asks you to feel something. Purpose asks you to decide something, to decide what matters, to decide what you're building, to decide what you're willing to struggle for. And that decision is what drives everything else. When you decide, really decide, everything simplifies. That noise fades and you stop debating. You stop putting things off, and purpose creates a clock in your head, a sense that now matters. You stop starting over, you just keep building one aligned action at a time. You don't need more motivation, you need more meaning. And discipline fueled by purpose doesn't feel like suffering. It feels like strength, like love, like conviction, because you're no longer doing hard things just to do them. You're doing them because they actually matter. And there's a quiet confidence that comes from showing up for something bigger than your comfort. You start trusting yourself again because you keep your word even when it's hard. When your actions align with your mission, every step builds on the last. It stacks and it multiplies. And motivation is nice when it shows up, but it's not necessary. What's really necessary is clarity, direction, purpose. And once you have that, you stop needing to feel ready. You just are ready at all times, which brings us to the next big trap, thinking you can do it all alone. So let's talk about the fatal mistake of going it alone. One of the most dangerous beliefs you can hold is the idea that you need to figure everything out by yourself, that asking for help is weakness, that independence means doing it solo, that your struggles are yours alone to carry. But the truth is, isolation doesn't make you strong, it makes you stuck. It cuts you off from insight, energy, momentum, and truth, and you become trapped in your own head, your own biases, your own blind spots, and the worst part, you can't even see how much it's actually costing you. This section is about destroying that myth for good, because if you don't, it will quietly destroy your progress, your clarity, and your confidence from the inside out. When you try to do everything alone, you're usually wearing a mask. You want to look like you've got it all figured out, like you don't need anyone, like you're unfazed, but that mask becomes a prison. You're constantly performing, pretending, managing your image instead of solving real problems. You can't grow while you're busy pretending. The energy you spend hiding could be energy used for building. Hiding your struggle is exhausting. It takes more energy to suppress the truth than to actually face it. The more you hide, the more isolated you feel, and the more isolated you feel, the more you hide. The reason most people isolate isn't pride. It's actually fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen in the middle instead of at the end. So they keep their goals secret, their struggles private, their desires locked up behind casual indifference. It's terrifying to be seen chasing something you haven't achieved yet, to say I want this before you have any proof. You worry that if you show your real ambition, people will mock it or minimize it, and if you fail in front of others, you think it will mean something about who you are, and that you're not enough. When you isolate, you slowly lose access to reality. You become trapped inside your own perspective. You talk to yourself in circles. You miss the obvious. You start believing your doubts more than your dreams. You magnify your flaws and downplay your actual strengths. You lose perspective of what's actually working. You become hyper aware of your shortcomings and blind to your wins. You assume everyone else is further ahead, smarter, clearer, more capable. Without others to challenge you, you create an echo chamber. Your thoughts bounce back to you, unchanged. Your beliefs go untested. Your self-talk becomes gospel. And if that inner voice is negative, you spiral. Growth requires friction, someone to challenge you, to question you, to push back. You need someone who's willing to say, you're playing small, and mean it. Real friends don't just comfort you, they actually call you up to your next level. And so, if you don't have friends like that, you should look for some. Your potential is shaped by your surroundings. If you're surrounded by people who settle, you'll start settling too. Not because you want to, but because that's the standard you're swimming in every day, and it will happen very subtly. You adapt to the energy around you, and average is contagious. You start lowering your goals just to fit in with people who aren't going anywhere. And before long, you forget what you were even aiming for. You lose the plot. But when you place yourself in the right room, everything changes. The right environment is a cheat code. It speeds up your growth, shortens the learning curve, multiplies your energy, and suddenly what felt impossible becomes normal. Just ask anybody that's invested in a coaching program. Get around people who are doing what you want to do, who are living the way you want to live. Just being around high standards will shift your own. You'll stop settling without even trying. You'll see what's possible, not just in a theory, but right in front of your face. And when you keep your goals to yourself, they stay abstract. When you say them out loud, they actually get real. When somebody checks in on you, you move. Not because you're being forced, but because now it matters to someone else too. Being seen sharpens your focus. It's no longer a dream, it's a commitment. And healthy pressure is a gift. It pushes you to actually rise. So you'll show up more often when you know someone's watching, not to judge you, but to remind you who you said you were. You don't just need strategy, you need support. People who believe in you when you forget, who remind you what you're capable of, and who celebrate your wins and hold you steady through the lows. So sometimes you need to borrow someone else's belief until your own catches up. And on the days you feel shaky, the right support system holds you firm. And when your tank is empty, connection refuels you in ways solitude never actually can. It takes courage to stop pretending, to admit you want more, to let people see you try, to risk being misunderstood. But that's what builds real power. Not fake confidence, real power. The kind that grows from truth and trust and shared ambition. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the gateway to real momentum. So when you're honest about what you want, the right people find you and the wrong ones fall away. Once you stop hiding, everything speeds up. You stop wasting energy, managing perception, and start using that energy to actually build. At some point, you have to decide that you're done doing this alone. Not because you can't, but because you know better. Because you understand that greatness isn't a solo pursuit. It's a team sport. And if you want to win, you need to find your team. Don't wait for the perfect circle to show up. Go find them or build one. Reach out to someone who actually inspires you, or start a group, or join a community, or even hire a coach. Take the first step. Don't wait to be invited. Invite yourself into your future. The lone wolf story is really nice and it sounds romantic, but it's a lie. Wolves die alone. Tribes thrive together. If you want to rise, you have to connect. And once you've got people who believe in you, you'll be ready to face the next stage of the path, learning how to actually use all this potential instead of just talking about it. So let's talk about the real blueprint for using 100% of your potential. So let's be real for a second. Most people don't come close to using their full potential, not because they're lazy, not because they're unmotivated, but because they never built the internal and external structure that allows them to operate at full capacity. They drive through life relying on hope instead of systems, emotion instead of intention, bursts of inspiration instead of sustainable fire. If you want to stop wasting what you've been given, you need a new operating system, not another checklist, not another planner, a total rewiring of how you see yourself, how you treat your time, how you measure progress, and how you respond when things get hard. So this section is about building that system brick by brick so you can finally stop promising yourself more and start proving it. The first move in reclaiming your potential is interruption. You have to break your own pattern. You can't shift into a new life while living on autopilot. You need to disrupt your momentum before you can redirect it. So create friction in your current routine. Do something out of character. Say no where you usually say yes. And wake yourself up with an action that doesn't match your past behavior. That's how you tell your nervous system change is happening. Even small changes matter when they signal a new identity being born. The act doesn't have to be big, it just has to be intentional. So you don't need complexity, you just need clarity. High performance isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most over and over without drama or delay and without getting bored. Or better yet, actually embracing the boredom. The simpler your system, the stronger your execution. So identify the few actions that move your life forward the most and double down on those. Actually, structure your whole life around them. Eliminate anything that doesn't contribute to your mission ruthlessly. And simplicity creates focus, and focus is a multiplier. It amplifies every ounce of effort you apply. Now, freedom without structure leads to chaos. The people who look the most spontaneous are often the most disciplined behind the scenes. If you want to build consistency, you need a framework that holds you up even when motivation fades. So set clear times for focus work, creative play, rest, and connection. Time isn't something you find, it's something you make by saying no. When something becomes a ritual, it becomes reliable. That's how momentum is born. Now, when it comes to your standards, raise them, then raise them again, and stop waiting to feel ready before you operate at a higher level. Choose the level you want to play at and start acting like you belong there. Standards aren't just about results, they're about what you allow and what you demand of yourself. So look at what you tolerate from yourself on a daily basis. That's your real standard. Hold yourself to that standard even when no one's watching, and especially then. Every time you meet a new standard, raise it slightly. Keep climbing one at a time. You don't need more goals. You need a new story. So stop trying to achieve your way into a new identity. Flip it. Build the identity first and let the results follow. Decide who you are, then act like it relentlessly. And again, you can see some of my other videos on the topic. Now, what do you believe about yourself that's keeping you small? Try to rewrite it out loud. Your habits are just votes for the person you believe you are, so cast better votes. Stop trying to become someone and start being them, even when it feels fake, and especially then. So you can't think your way into a new life. You have to act. Bold, uncomfortable, real-world action. Every time you act before you feel ready, you actually train your nervous system to normalize pressure. You raise your ceiling, you expand your bandwidth, and stack small wins early and often. They build the foundation of self-trust. Perfection is the enemy. Done is the path to momentum. So do the thing you've been avoiding. That's usually the thing that unlocks the next level. So you can't see your own blind spots. You need mirrors, coaches, peers, results, pain. Feedback isn't failure, it's fuel. The faster you get it, the faster you grow. And the more honest it is, the sharper you get. So be willing to suck, be willing to be wrong. And that's how you get better. Iterate faster than your ego can resist. Action always beats overthinking. Apply what you learn immediately, and that's how you turn insight into progress. You can't run at full throttle 24/7, and you don't have to. So high performance includes rest as well, but not the kind of lazy, scattered rest that leaves you more tired. You need intentional recovery. Recovery that refuels you, that clears space, that sharpens your edge. Build rest into your routine, not as an escape, but as part of your strategy. Push hard and then pull back fully. Intensity needs its counterbalance. Sleep, solitude, nature, movement, stillness, a short vacation. Whatever brings you back to your sharpest self. If you don't track your growth, you won't also recognize it. So you'll feel like nothing's changing even when everything is. So another thing you could do is to reflect weekly. Celebrate progress, analyze setbacks, and ask better questions. Then adjust, iterate, and move. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of growth. What you can see, you can shift. Own what's working, own what's not. No blame, just ownership. Every review is a recalibration, and every recalibration saves you months of wandering. One thing I like to do is when I review my day, week, month, quarter, and even year, I ask myself what are things that I can improve, and then I look for books, coaches, courses, everything that I can use in order to improve in that specific area. So every review is a recalibration and is also an opportunity to learn more. At the end of the day, the people who use 100% of their potential aren't the most talented. They're the most relentless. They show up when it's inconvenient. They move when it's messy. They stop waiting for permission and act like their future depends on them because it does. Most people quit halfway through the transformation. They mistake discomfort for a sign to stop. Your strength isn't in how fast you move. It's in how long you stay in the fight. And if you refuse to quit, you make success inevitable. It becomes a matter of when and not if. So you don't need to be more talented. You don't need to be more inspired. You need to build a new way of operating. One that's aligned, disciplined, embodied, and clear. And you already have the raw material. What you need now is the system that brings it all together and all to life. And once that system is built, all that's left is to live it. So if this hit home, don't let it fade. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you're done playing small and ready to actually build the life you've been pretending you don't want, book a call with us from the link below. will help you turn all this potential into a plan and that plan into results. With that being said, let's talk about what we covered. So as you can see from the review, we covered the overview. We talked about you knowing you're meant for more. We talked about how to stop coasting and start living fully, escaping the system that trained you to settle, why easy living is slowly killing you, why motivation fails and purpose wins, the fatal mistake of going it alone, the real blueprint for using 100% of your potential, the review, and your action items for the day or the next few days. First, draw a hard line between who you've been and who you're becoming, not in theory, in writing, on paper, today. Name the old patterns you're done with and declare the new standard you're choosing. No more waiting, no more drifting. Decide who you are, then start proving it. Do one thing today that breaks your usual rhythm. Something uncomfortable, something that interrupts the default. Send a message, start the project, say no where you usually say yes where you normally shrink. Shock the system and show yourself you're done living on autopilot. And finally, connect. Reach out right now. Text a friend, join a group, book a call with us. Find someone who won't let you coast. Tell them what you're building. Tell them what you're done tolerating. The next level of your life isn't going to build itself, and it's not meant to be built alone. With that being said, I hope this brought a lot of value. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.